We've got some fresh images of 3I Atlas, a third ever interstellar object observed from Earth, currently racing through our solar system.
For months, astronomers assured the public that 3 Atlas would be nothing more than a spectacular flyby, a harmless interstellar visitor skimming past Mars before vanishing into black. But the cosmos rarely does harmless without reason, and James Webb, our most advanced eye in the void, has delivered data that flips the narrative upside down. The numbers have changed, the trajectory has shifted, and now, for the first time, scientists are whispering the one thing no one wanted to hear. 3 Atlas might hit Mars. Yet this isn't just about a comet. It's about precision maneuvers, clock-like gas pulses, and an object behaving less like a rock and more like a spacecraft. The deeper the data goes, the clearer it becomes. 3 Atlas is not drifting. It's steering, adjusting, targeting, and the red planet is directly in its path. When 3 Atlas was first spotted on July 1st, it appeared like any other interstellar interloper, a fast-moving blur with a glowing coma traveling at an unprecedented 87 kilometers per second relative to the Sun, fast enough to cross the Earth-Moon distance in under 80 minutes. What stunned scientists wasn't its velocity but its behavior. Comets typically slow, fragment, or stabilize as they approach the inner system, but 3 Atlas began accelerating subtly yet consistently, while its trajectory tightened with slight course corrections. Within weeks, its coma doubled in brightness, and spectral analysis revealed intense ultraviolet spikes and co-outgassing at rates never before seen in any comet. It was acting less like a drifting chunk of frozen rock, and more like a guided missile. Then Webb's deep field sensors caught something that changed everything. Rhythmic pulses from the tail, not chaotic jets from melting ice, but deliberate thrusts in perfect 17-minute intervals. A pattern, a signal, a maneuver. As Webb, Gemini South, and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory continued tracking, the numbers told a terrifying story. What had been a near miss had become something far more dangerous, a revised impact distance of just 1.95 million kilometers from Mars, a hair's breadth on the cosmic scale. Worse still, simulations show that even a 10 kilometers per second increase in velocity, a fraction of what's already measured in those gas pulses, could shift its path into a direct hit. This level of control is unheard of in natural bodies. It's as if 3 Atlas is using its own outgassing as microthrusters, adjusting its approach like a spacecraft, with thrusts perfectly aligned to the planet's orbital plane. Scientists aren't just tracking an object anymore, they're watching it aim. And between September 19th and 30th, any single outburst could be the one that pushes it over the edge. It's no longer only amateur theorists or sci-fi enthusiasts sounding the alarm. Harvard astrophysicist A.V.I. Lubb and his team have published a paper proposing something bold. 3 Atlas may be an engineered probe. The data supports them. Radar bounces from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and Goldstone antennas return metallic echoes, not the soft, watery signatures of typical comets, and inside sources at NASA describe the radar reflections as unlike anything seen before. Add to that the green, needle-like streams captured in amateur high-exposure images, 3 glowing beams converging toward Mars, pulsing in sync with the exhaust vents, and the picture becomes undeniable. This object is not behaving naturally. Lubb suggests 3 Atlas could be deliberately targeting Mars to crash, or worse, to deliver something: probes, signals, spores. Mars is being approached with surgical intent, and humanity is caught watching an operation it barely understands unfold. If it hits, the consequences are almost incomprehensible. With a mass estimated at 10 billion tons and a speed of 57 kilometers per second relative to Mars, an impact would unleash more than 2 million megatons of energy, thousands of times the most powerful nuclear detonation in Earth's history, creating a 60-kilometer wide, 5-kilometer deep crater and scattering debris across Mars' orbit, some of which could be ejected into interplanetary space and eventually reach Earth. The destruction wouldn't end with rock and dust. Mars hosts dozens of scientific assets, rovers, orbiters, experiments searching for life, and climate records spanning decades. An impact would erase decades of research, blind communication arrays, and possibly ignite contamination, event humanity is wholly unprepared for. ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, and JAXA have all initiated planetary defense discussions, not against an alien fleet, but against a single object behaving a little too much like a vehicle. Mars has long been suspected of harboring subsurface lakes, dormant microbes, and ancient ecosystems locked beneath permafrost, the very reasons we sent so many rovers, orbiters, and landers. But if 3 Atlas strikes, all of that becomes a biological unknown. The extreme heat wouldn't just vaporize the surface. It would crack open deeper layers of the Martian crust, exposing reservoirs we've never reached. And if 3 Atlas carries organic molecules, or worse, synthetic biology, embedded in its outgassing trails, the fusion of Earth-independent evolution with Martian biology could result in genetic contamination on a planetary scale. Some biologists call this panspermian reverse, not life spreading from Mars to Earth, but life being seeded into Mars deliberately. It raises a terrifying question. What if the goal was never destruction? What if the object is a delivery system, and Mars is the incubator? As 3 Atlas approached its closest point to Mars, the James Webb Telescope locked onto the object for one final ultra-deep scan. The result was classified for 48 hours before a portion was released to the public, but leaks from within the Webb project tell a darker story. NIR spec and MIRI instruments detected traces of synthetic polymers, molecules resembling Earth-made plastics and carbon nanotubes intermixed with natural gases. These are not structures that form in a vacuum or during cometary heating. They are engineered materials. Webb spectrographs also detected persistent isotopic anomalies, notably in carbon and hydrogen that match no known solar system object. In short, 3I Atlas contains things that should not exist in space, and all of it is heading straight toward a planet that still might be alive. Webb's data was shared privately with major space agencies, and emergency task forces were convened not because we could stop it, but because we were running out of time to figure out what it really is. As panic grew, NASA made a surprising move. Silence. The usual press releases stopped. Telemetry feed from Perseverance and Tianwen-1 showed gaps, and questions about potential impact scenarios were redirected. Something had changed. Then, in a classified transmission later leaked by an internal whistleblower, a chilling phrase appeared: Impact Protocol Initiated. No one knows exactly what it means, but insiders claim a series of encrypted signals were sent from Earth base stations to all functioning Mars equipment. A curious act, considering there is no known way to deflect or intercept 3 Atlas. Unless, of course, the purpose of those signals wasn't to protect Mars but to prepare it. If 3 Atlas is an intelligent system, even semi-autonomous, it may be reacting to energy signatures, orbital beacons, or encoded pulses. And if Earth just turned those systems on, we may have confirmed we're listening. Worse, we may have confirmed we're responding, and whatever intelligence is behind this object, if any, now knows we are aware. A team of cryptographers at the SETY Institute did something no one had considered. They took the current trajectory, time of closest approach, velocity, and gravitational vectors, data points known by every astronomer on Earth, and translated them into binary. Applying standard compression algorithms used in deep space messaging, what emerged was more than random data. It was structured, repeating, containing a series of numerical intervals corresponding to atomic numbers: 6, 8, 14, 26, carbon, oxygen, silicon, iron, the building blocks of both life and machines. Interspersed were prime number countdowns and spacing consistent with recursive messaging protocols. In short, the entire flight path of 3 Atlas may be a signal in motion, a message not delivered through radio but through behavior, timing, and presence. This would mean we aren't simply observing a trajectory toward Mars. We're witnessing a communicative event, where the impact window itself is part of the message. If it strikes, that's a sentence. If it misses, that's another. Either way, the answer is already written in the stars. As the projected impact path narrowed, planetary scientists noticed a chilling coincidence. 3 Atlas's updated trajectory crossed a narrow corridor directly above Elysium Planitia, a geologically young region of Mars known for unusually symmetrical surface features. Satellite imagery revealed concentric ridges, spiral-like flows, and formations eerily mimicking Fibonacci patterns. These weren't new, but what caught everyone's attention was that the exact vector of 3 Atlas's descent aligned with the region's central depression, a perfectly circular basin less than 3.5 kilometers wide, with no known impact origin or volcanic residue. Perfectly centered within the basin was a deposit of crystalline silicates with refractive properties not found anywhere else on Mars. When struck by solar radiation, they emit brief pulses of infrared light in regular intervals. Most dismiss this as a geological curiosity, but now scientists are asking, was this basin a random feature or a beacon, a rendezvous point? And if so, who set the coordinates? Just as James Webb locked back onto 3 Atlas from its alternate tracking point, an unexpected anomaly emerged. Behind the main body of the object, not physically attached but trailing at a consistent 0.07 astronomical units, was a secondary shadow. It wasn't a debris field or gas. It was something darker. Radar couldn't detect it. Infrared couldn't warm it. But photometric analysis showed a sharp drop in light moving in perfect unison with 3 Atlas, as if tethered by some invisible force. This shadow maintained an exact distance, unperturbed by gravity or acceleration, and when visualized in polar coordinates, it formed a perfect orbital trace. Something was following 3 Atlas, not escorting, not herding, but mirroring. Speculation exploded. Was it a secondary object, a drone, a gravitational echo, or something else entirely, a field, a memory, a protocol? For the first time, researchers began to consider that 3 Atlas may not be the main actor in this cosmic event, but simply the carrier of something more elusive. With all eyes on the projected impact date, an even more unsettling pattern emerged. When scientists mapped out the entire trajectory of 3 Atlas and its closest approaches to the Sun, Earth, and Mars, they found each alignment fell on astronomical resonance dates, key orbital harmonics long studied by ancient civilizations. September 23rd, October 5th, November 11th. These dates match not just seasonal equinoxes and transits, but rare gravitational synchronizations occurring in cycles of 54 years. The last time all 3 inner planets were in similar orbital positions during a comet's passage was a Tunguska event in 1908. This synchronicity sent shockwaves through the scientific community. How could a random interstellar object arrive at such astronomically significant moments, unless it wasn't random, unless it was timing itself, following a clock not built by human hands? This wasn't celestial coincidence. It was a pattern, and patterns in space are always the signature of design. One final revelation pushed the conversation into a realm once considered taboo in mainstream science: consciousness in motion. A neurocosmology team at Princeton studying neural synchronization patterns under deep meditative states noticed something extraordinary. When subjects were exposed to the pulsation frequencies emitted by 3 Atlas's light curve, particularly the 17-minute gas vent intervals, their brainwave activity synchronized not just in one subject, but across multiple subjects in different rooms, isolated and unaware. This isn't just resonance. This is neurological entrainment, as if the signal wasn't only mechanical but cognitive. And if it can affect us from across millions of kilometers, what does that say about its origin? Is it possible that 3 Atlas is not a rock, not a spacecraft, but a thought moving through the universe like a seed of awareness, a message you don't read but feel, something that activates when heard, something that becomes part of you the moment? You understand it? If that's true, then the impact on Mars, whether physical or not, may be just a symptom. The real event may already be happening inside us. As fears surrounding potential impact escalated, a quiet group of archaeoastronomers began cross-referencing 3 Atlas's trajectory with ancient sky maps, records not just from Western observatories but from Babylonian, Mayan, and Tibetan cosmology scrolls. What they found defied belief: a pattern known as a flame serpent appearing across cultures, describing a celestial body that descends from the outer dark, curves unnaturally near the sun, and aims for the red god, Mars. The pattern repeated in stellar carvings and even cave etchings, each depicting the same sinuous path. One set stood out, a pre-Incan calendar stone from Tiwanaku showing 4 radiating lines from Mars after the comet's descent. When processed through photogrammetry, the lines match Webb's projected debris dispersion pattern in the event of a Mars impact. What does this mean? That somehow someone saw this coming, not in this century but thousands of years ago. It suggests that 3 Atlas is not merely passing through history. It might be history repeating itself. And Mars may not be the target. It may be the trigger. Then something utterly unexpected happened. The ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, quiet for days due to power conservation, detected a spike in xenon isotopes in the upper Martian atmosphere. At first, scientists assumed it was solar radiation, but the composition was all wrong. This wasn't being added from above. It was rising. From deep fissures near Cerberus Fossae, one of the most geologically unstable regions on Mars, seismic activity spiked and temperature readings in the subsurface layers rose by 3 degrees Kelvin. In a twist that stunned the scientific community, magnetometer readings detected a weak but structured magnetic pulse repeating every 17 minutes, the same interval as 3I Atlas's gas emissions. This was no longer a question of whether the object would impact, but whether Mars was already preparing for it, as if the planet weren't being threatened but activated, something dormant inside its crust stirring after millennia. With every passing hour, the idea of impact became less of a physical event and more of a temporal one. Light fluctuation from 3I Atlas no longer matched a cometary spin, but instead followed a recursive layered timing sequence. 7 pulses, pause, 3 pulses, pause, 13 pulses. Numbers that, when graphed, form a Fibonacci-based spiral associated with organic growth, memory encoding, and even human DNA coiling. Mathematicians and cryptographers, working together, landed on a disturbing hypothesis. 3 Atlas were transmitting time not in seconds or hours, but in cycles, epochs. The object wasn't simply arriving, it was synchronizing. The countdown wasn't to an impact moment, but to resonance, a convergence of energy, orbit, and consciousness that, if completed, might not bring an explosion but a shift in perception or even reality itself. In the final 72 hours before the projected impact, a low-frequency infrasonic signal was detected, inaudible to human ears but unmistakable in its waveform, not from space or bouncing off Mars, but originating beneath Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system. Once thought geologically dead, it now emitted a structured harmonic frequency captured independently by orbiters from ESA, CNSA, and NASA. The signal matched no known natural phenomenon, but when isolated and visualized as a spectrogram, it formed a spiral mirroring the same waveform emitted by 3I Atlas during its closest approach to Sun. The scientific community fell silent. What does it mean when a planet responds to an object before it arrives? Is Olympus Mons echoing or communicating? Has Mars been waiting for this exact moment? And if so, what happens when it finally opens its eyes? A forgotten dataset revealed an even stranger clue, a faint heat signature beneath the surface of Utopia Planitia captured by Mars Odyssey nearly 2 decades ago and dismissed as solar reflection noise. When rescanned after 3I Atlas's approach, the heat pattern had returned, grown, and now matched an ancient glyph carved into the stone walls of the D&M Fosse, a descending spiral colliding with a circle and 2 planetary spheres aligned at the moment of contact. The implications were staggering. Mars might hold a memory not just of geology but of an encoded celestial past, perhaps acting as a recording device with 3 Atlas as its playback key. Then something impossible occurred. High-resolution imagery from SR's Mars Express captured movement in the dust field south of Noctis Labyrinthus, 2 perfect and centric ovals expanding outward as if carved from beneath, forming over 4 hours into an unmistakable image, an eye tilted exactly 23.5 degrees, Earth's axial tilt. An eye watching us, or a mirror showing ourselves. Mars had blinked, not metaphorically but physically and deliberately, something beneath the surface aware of us, of our geometry, our orientation, our signal, as if this event had been anticipated, perhaps even requested long before our species existed. In one of the last readings before signal blackout, the James Webb Space Telescope performed a spectral breakdown of the molecular trail left by 3 Atlas and found a repeating strand of nuclear-based sequences eerily similar to INA, not exact, not Earth-based, but unmistakably structured for replication. Portions mirrored human-designed encryption keys, others resembled known musical intervals, as if the molecule itself was designed to interact with intelligence and respond to interpretation. This was no passive cosmic dust, but a living code engineered not to survive space, but to transmit through it. Life not as cells, but as language. As 3I Atlas entered its final trajectory arc, the Global Astronomy Network mapped one last alignment. Mars, Earth, and the Sun forming a perfect straight line with 3 Atlas poised to intersect the axis at a precise moment of solar transit. This projection matched ancient megalithic alignments. Stonehenge, Nabta Playa, Teotihuacan, Wakan, all pointing to the same triad of celestial angles. For millennia, humans had unknowingly built monuments in preparation for this configuration. Now the alignment was about to repeat, not as myth but as mechanism. Mars a red witness, Earth the awakened observer, the Sun the eternal source, and 3I Atlas not an object but a keystone falling into the lock of planetary memory. The final position was not about destruction but completion. Once aligned, Something would change. Not out there, but in here. We looked at the sky and thought we saw a comet, a rogue rock, a wandering fragment from some forgotten corner of the galaxy. We called it 3i Atlas. We tracked its numbers, mapped its arc, convinced ourselves it was random. But what the James Webb revealed wasn't randomness. It was ritual. This object didn't just arrive. It performed. It aligned. It responded. And as it crossed the solar system, every planet it passed whispered back. Signals, pulses, alignments, codes. Mars didn't just react. It remembered. As if this wasn't its first encounter. As if this moment had been scripted into the bones of the planets, the dust of the craters, the pulse of gravity itself. With one final maneuver, 3 Atlas had taken position not to destroy but to complete something, a pattern, a countdown, a convergence. Mars may be the stage, but Earth is the audience. We were never meant to be passive observers. We were always part of the design. Every telescope we built, every signal we sent, every theory we mocked, all of it was heard. The final impact may not be physical, may not leave a crater, but it has already begun to reshape what we thought we knew about Mars, about life, about ourselves. Because in the end, 3 Atlas didn't come from Mars. It came for our attention. And now that it has it, we must ask, what happens next?